Welcome to the Women's Health Community Podcast. We're here to remove the pressure of the gym bro culture within the health and fitness community. So if you're a wannabe muscle mummy like me, a Pilates princess, in your running era, or simply a woman who values her health and fitness, this podcast is for you. Join us each week as we chat with inspiring and motivating individuals from all walks of life, sharing their personal journeys and practical tips for living a healthier and more fulfilling life. Welcome back to another episode of the Women's Health Community Podcast. We're doing another solo episode today. I actually was talking on my stories about this episode, and I have a whole bunch of questions to go through that you guys have asked me. And when I said don't hold back, some of you didn't hold back, and I love that, and I'm excited for that. But before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to remind you all that on March 15th, we do have our live event. So we have Jazz and Alana coming down from Queensland. We have the Oi Let's Talk podcast doing a live podcast, and we have Lauren, who is a qualified psychologist, also attending. So if you are someone who is looking for a community, someone who's looking to meet like-minded women, to enter a space where you feel safe, you feel seen, and you're just ready to have a fun day, this is the event for you. I have made this event the cheapest out of all four. I am not increasing the prices. I have gotten some incredible sponsors on board, like we have every event. And I've promised that every event will get bigger and better, and I have definitely delivered with this one. So hopefully we can see you. Hopefully if you enjoy this podcast, you want to come and meet in person. I can hug you, I can thank you, and we can just have a great day, because it is going to be a great day. Anyway, questions. I always feel a little bit strange when I'm doing a solo episode, because I'm like, I have no one to bounce off, and it's literally just me yapping away for 45 minutes to an hour. And then I'm like, worried that I'm not going to be able to hit 20 minutes, and then we end up going for like 50 minutes. So we'll just see how we go. So I have all your questions here. I don't know if you can see, there's a lot there. I did post one on my story, and it was, how often do you and your partner have sex? Listen, we're going to answer this one first, because it's going to be the quickest one to answer. When I got this question, I asked him straight away, and he said it's not enough. I've competed. I'm in my third ever bodybuilding prep. Something about extreme dieting, which is what competing is. It is an extreme sport. It requires extreme dieting. Your libido goes. Doesn't even go down. Doesn't even reduce. It goes. It exits. It leaves. And I've competed now, like I said, this will be my third time. That is something that has not come back. So, Mum, if you're listening, like, you'll be fine after this question. Like, I'm sorry, but it is, according to Alex, not enough. It is enough. Yeah. I don't know if I'm getting awkward. It's like once a week, guys, okay? We're just getting that out there. Okay, that question's done. I can get into the other questions. So a lot of them are anonymous, so I don't know who sent them, but if you did send through a question, thank you, and I appreciate you. And if you ever want to send me a question to answer on the podcast, definitely DM me and I'll answer it, and I can thank you personally. But someone asked, will you always work in the fitness industry, or will you one day work for someone else again? Okay. Firstly, I will never, ever, ever, ever work for anyone else again. I have been running my own business and working for myself for 5 years now. So February 2020, I started running my coaching business. And prior to that, I was working 3 to 4 jobs at any one time. I was coaching at a group fitness gym. I was working in restaurants. I was a barista. I was bartending for a little bit. So I was also working at a hotel doing like breakfast buffet at like 4:30 in the morning. I will never, ever, ever be employed by someone other than myself. I have a real strong issue with working hard and putting in hard hours and hard work for my boss. And if you work in hospitality, you will know this. For my boss to be sitting at a table, ordering me around to go and clean windows, to go and do their bullshit jobs that have nothing to do with my job title. If I'm a barista, I'm not being paid to clean toilets. Simple as that. But then would I always see myself working in the fitness industry? Yes, to some extent. I don't think I would ever be someone to open a gym or open a space like that. However, I'm very passionate about hospitality. I am very passionate about the food and coffee industry. So I do see myself running 2 businesses. So I do see myself having my coaching business, and like whilst I am studying my pre and postnatal qualifications, I think that will allow me to coach for a lot longer than I potentially thought I was going to be able to. It'll give me a new niche, it'll give me some more education to go through and to be able to continue coaching women for a lot longer. But then also I do see myself one day opening up another restaurant. If you didn't know, in 2016, 2017, 2018, like 10, I don't even know how long ago we had it. So my family owned up a restaurant on Bell Street in Coburg, the old police station. So we used to have a restaurant there. That was a massive, like 200-seater restaurant, indoor, outdoor, breakfast through to dinner. That was massive. It will never be that scale again. I'm thinking like a breakfast lunch place. We close at like 4:00, 7 days a week, like small vibes. So I definitely want to be back in the hospitality industry. I do also want to open up like a recovery place. Like I would never do a gym, but I would definitely do like a recovery lounge with like saunas, ice baths, spas, massage, like treatment as well, like rehab treatment and all that sort of stuff, as I'm someone who is getting treatment at the moment twice a week because my body apparently is just crumbling. As soon as I turned 28, my body started to crumble. So yeah, do I always see myself working in the fitness industry? Yes, to some extent. There will always be an element of my life that is very much involved in this industry. And then will I be working for someone else again? Fuck no. How long have I been coaching for and why I started this podcast and event? So I've been coaching for 6 years. The first year of my coaching, I was an in-person group fitness trainer, and I actually worked for an Essendon footballer. He was my boss for a whole year. He was the most chill guy to ever work for. He literally was never there. So that was my first job, and then COVID happened, started my business. So I've been running my business for 5 years, so that's 6 years in total. And then why I started this podcast and event. So this podcast has only been running now for, I want to say 12 weeks. So it's still very new. Like that's crazy actually. It's been 3 months. Wow. But these events was something that I actually went on a retreat. So Kate, who was on, I think like episode 3 of this podcast, my best friend, she hosted a retreat that I went to as like one of her business clients. And on that retreat, I learned that I am someone who really values community. I value being in a space with other women who have similar interests, similar likes, similar dislikes, similar thought patterns, similar motivations, all of these things to me. And I felt like at that point, I was 4 years into running my business and I felt really isolated and really alone. And that also I knew other women would want the same thing, would want to be a part of a space, a part of a community that really allows them to meet women and to be a part of something. Whereas like if you're a coach, and I'm sure there's a few coaches that listen, or other women who like the gym, who potentially work in different industries and don't actually work with women who are into similar things than they are, you feel like you're alone a lot of the time. You feel like the outsider, you feel like a black sheep, and you just want to be able to be around other women who truly understand you. And I think that retreat taught me that. And then literally 2 days after we left, Kate and I spent 4 days in Gold Coast, and I literally just didn't speak to her for like a full 12 hours because we both just needed to decompress from the retreat that we were just on. And came to her after and I was like, I've literally thought of this idea. And within like 2 months after that, we hosted our first live event. And I think something I'm still learning is how to properly market these events to remove a lot of fear, because I think that is the biggest limiting factor to women coming, that there is a fear of stepping into a space that you don't know anyone. But that is also the point. The point is you're going to meet new people. You're going to meet women who are connected to you. And I think the events came from being in a space where I was around women who were similar to me and knowing that I wasn't the only one feeling that way. I wasn't the only person that was feeling alone, or I wasn't the only person that was feeling confused or like an outsider or different or wrong or strange. I was one of many, and being in the position that I could create that space and create this podcast to connect other people. We've already hosted 2 events this year, and we're like 3 weeks away from hosting our 3rd event of the year. To be responsible for allowing women to meet each other and allowing women to be a part of something and to feel less alone is not something I take very lightly. It's a job that I take very seriously, and I'm very honored that people trust me, that people are still trusting me, that people are learning about this space and this community, and people are still wanting to join and be a part of it. And I think it's one of the best ventures that I've ever taken in business that is equally fulfilling in terms of passion, but then also equally rewarding in terms of the outcome that women get immediately. Like if you attended our HIIT workout, you were partnered up with someone who you didn't know. Specifically, I partnered people together knowing that they didn't know each other. Seeing women support each other, push each other, compete against each other, have a laugh with each other, high five each other at the end. Being responsible for building that community to me it's so rewarding. And like I mentioned in my previous solo episode, monetary gain is not what this community is about. It is an expense for me, and I don't know if that's sharing too much, but I don't profit anything out of it. The profit for me is the joy in seeing and building a community. For me, community is everything, and without that, I wouldn't be hosting this podcast because, like I said, it's an expense, and I think knowing that people are enjoying the content, knowing that people are enjoying the community and wanting to be a part of the community, people are traveling from all over Australia to attend our events. That to me is insane, and that to me is a responsibility that I don't take lightly. So that is why I started it, because community to me is everything. I love being a part of something bigger than just myself, and I think that that is what this is. So hopefully that answers your question on that one. There was one about coaching, and I don't know if she was meant to answer this, but I'll answer on here anyway. So it says, I can't deal with weight fluctuations. It ruins my day and makes me feel bad about myself. It makes me wonder if everyone feels this way. Yes. I think weight fluctuations, especially as women, are common. We go through so many different phases throughout a month, let alone throughout a day. Excuse me, I just burped. I need to stop burping. Whenever I'm recording, I just get really burpy. But obviously, as women, we have a period, we have a cycle. At every different stage of your cycle, every different stage of the month, you are going through something different, and your body will respond to that. However, if we take out just your cycle, stress, sleep, salt, food, the times you ate, the amount of water you drank, what's going on with your training sessions, how hard you trained, your rate of recovery, I don't even know, like for me, if I fly, I'm always a lot heavier. If you've gone to the toilet, if you're constipated, and then add your cycle on top of that, all of these things contribute to weight fluctuations. For me, I know specifically when I'm ovulating, I'm 2 kilos heavier. And then the day I get my period, I am like 2 kilos heavier. If I wasn't aware of those fluctuations and just randomly woke up 2 kilos heavier, sure, I would probably spiral. But something I do tell my clients is that with every fluctuation that we have, if your food, if your water, if your training, if everything is on point, there is always a reason. Even if those things aren't on point, there is always a reason that we can come back to understand why the body is responding how it is. And if you think that it is nothing, and if you think that there is no external factor that is what is causing your weight fluctuation to happen, there is a reason. Whether it be your cycle, whether it be your stress, whether it be your sleep, there is always going to be something that we can pinpoint. Potentially could be something like more serious, which I'm like 9 times out of 10, it isn't. But there is always going to be something that we can pinpoint the fluctuation to. And I think really removing, I don't want to say the care from the scales, because if you are trying to lose body fat, if you are trying to lose weight, the scales are what represent that. And I know that there's this whole movement online at the moment that fat loss isn't easy and that the scales aren't everything. However, if you are an overweight woman and you are wanting to lose weight, the scales mean a lot to you. I will never say the scales don't mean anything to me. When I was 105 kilos and I wanted to be healthy, the scales meant a lot to me. When I am in prep and when I am actively trying to compete below 58 kilos, the scales mean a lot to me. However, the difference between then versus now is that if I spike up, I don't panic. I don't cut food. I don't starve myself. I don't reduce my intake. I don't train more. I just keep following the plan because I have done it before, and I know that consistency in my actions, my habits, my intake, my training all outweigh one 200-gram spike. A 200-gram spike in the grand scheme of a 30-week diet, which is what my prep at the moment is nothing. And I think when I was 105 kilos as opposed to now when I'm 80 kilos, I think really the difference is the recognition that I am putting in the work. I'm not trying to cheat myself. I'm not trying to cheat the system. I am not trying to trick my body into losing weight. I'm not trying to do all of these fad diets. I'm not trying to do all of this excessive cardio. I'm simply following a plan, and I'm every day showing up. And I think removing that pressure from the scale, because I still care and I still have a goal that I want to be achieving in terms of my weight, I think removing the pressure that the scale dictates my worth for me was a really big weight off my shoulders. And it was a really big moment of realization that I could understand that essentially what I'm saying is the scale, yes, it can matter. But if you allow yourself to every single day have your emotions dictated on whether you go down or up by a few 100 grams, you are going to be exhausted. The process is never going to be enjoyable. So understanding why and always being really logical with yourself when these fluctuations happen, that is going to be the biggest thing that allows you to move daily with freedom and not be constricted by the scales. Also, if you are someone who is weighing yourself daily and you're finding that that is triggering you, stop weighing yourself daily. Weigh yourself 3 times a week. My clients will weigh themselves on a Tuesday, Thursday, and a Sunday. That's enough information to give us an average throughout the week to then be able to tell whether or not we are progressing towards their overall goal, but then also not enough that they're noticing every minute fluctuation that happens every single day. So hopefully that helps you. But yeah, like you asked, you're not the only person that feels that way. Weight fluctuations, especially as women, are something that is very common and something that a lot of people deal with and a lot of people hyperfixate on when there is always a reason, and you can always come back to a specific reason. So they're all the anonymous questions, I think. But we have 12 questions. So what events am I excited for this year? Obviously, competing and going back to America, without a doubt, is probably one of the biggest highlights of my year. I'm also really excited that I'm going to be going to Nashville for the first time, and I'm going to be going to Luke Combs' new club, country bar, honky tonk bar, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to that, category 10. So excited for that. But then outside of competing, my best friend is getting married. Like my best friend we became friends in 2005, 2006. So we've been friends for nearly over 10 years. When I say this wedding, I am going to be crying all day for. I'm so excited. I'm excited to see her in her dress. I have no idea what her dress looks like. I'm excited for her hens. I'm excited for her bridal shower. I'm just so excited to see her get married to so a bit of a backstory. My friendship group was me, Isabel, Jake, and then Giacomo. It was the 4 of us for a very long time. Isabel and Jake are now getting married. Like, that is wild to me that is where that relationship went. I mean, we always knew that it was going to happen. We always knew that they were going to end up dating. But this wedding to me is just like my 2 best friends of so many years are getting married. And yeah, I think they would be the 2 biggest things of my year. Other than that, I'm having my 2nd year wedding anniversary on May 20. Won't really be doing much of that because I'm in prep. I have another wedding in April, but yeah, definitely my show on, I think it's September 14th. I actually don't even know the exact date of my show. That's pretty bad. And then Isabel's wedding as well in October, which I'm very excited for. What is my proposal story and how did Alex and I meet? So we actually met in America. We met on Tinder. I was in Orlando. I was on a solo trip for 2 months by myself. We met in 2018, I want to say. And this is when like my mental health was at like its all-time low. So I was very heavily addicted to Tinder, very heavily addicted to external attention in order to validate how I felt. So I was swiping right to every single guy that I saw on Tinder, and Alex just happened to be one of them. And his photo, I remember to this day, was him in front of the Opera House in Sydney. So we met in America, but Alex is from Sydney. And the first thing I said to him, and I remember my first message was like, "Oh my God, you've been to Australia." And his reply was, "No, I am from Australia." And I got the instant ick, and I was like, I didn't come to America to meet an Australian man. Wasn't on my cards. So kind of friend zoned him, and we just stayed friends. We just would literally ended up talking every single day. We knew that we were going to meet up at some point, and like there was flirting happening back and forth, but it was never going to be anything I thought serious until we actually met. Like, so we actually had our first date in Sydney. So for the rest of my trip, the rest of his trip, we just were texting every single day. We'd send Snapchats. We'd just like friends really. And then when we had our first date, it was, yeah, it was different. Like to him, he just said it was a one night stand that went wrong, and he now still hasn't got rid of me 7 years later. But yeah, so we definitely, and then for the first while, we actually didn't tell anyone that we met on Tinder. We said that we met at a club. We actually told pretty much everyone that we know at our wedding that we met on Tinder. So that was a fun little moment in our speech. And my proposal story. So I moved into his parents' place 2021, and I was back and forth from Melbourne and Sydney for a lot of that time. But then obviously with COVID, I was stuck in Melbourne for every large lockdown. So the final lockdown that happened in Melbourne, I ended up getting stuck here for. So we were apart for 3 months. Then I was still prepping at this time, still meant to be stepping on stage. And then my show got cancelled. I cracked the shits, packed up my car, and within a week had moved back in with his parents. We had found a place to rent. And 2 weeks after I had moved to Sydney, he had proposed to me. I had no idea that he proposed. He was planning to propose. No idea that he had spoken to my parents. No idea that he had bought a ring. Nothing. Like, I'm talking to the fact that we had a fight the morning he was proposing to me because I wanted to wear Converse to my proposal, and he told me not to, and he told me to wear like nice shoes. And I remember getting angry at him because I'm like, since when do you tell me what to wear? Like, sorry? You don't tell me what to wear. So, yeah, we literally had a fight the morning of. Then I cracked the shits at him and our best friend because our best friend Peter was there helping him plan the whole proposal, and got annoyed at them. So I had no idea. Like, if you've seen the TikTok of me when he proposed to me, like, I had no idea, and I was uncontrollably laughing the whole time because I had just like yelled at him. And we drove to the Opera House where he proposed to me in the Uber in complete silence. I thought it was because we were still really fighting and our fight was a lot more serious than I thought. It was because he was shitting himself and he was about to propose to me, and I had no idea. So there was, yeah, that was our proposal story. I had no idea. In terms of my ring, he picked it all. I had no say, no decision. I had nothing, but he got it all right. So that is a positive. What is something people assume about you that is very wrong? I know the answer. And it's the fact that, like, even through primary school and through high school, this was something. And it was the fact that I was given everything from my parents. Like, this is a very vulnerable thing, and I'm getting sweaty talking about it. But my parents have ran their own business together for most of my childhood. And I was very fortunate to be going on holidays quite young. We lived in an amazing home, all of these things. But once I finished high school, once I started working, once I was at uni, everything I did, every holiday I went on, everything, like all my cars, everything was me. And I think for a very long time, people always thought that it was my parents that were giving me these things. So when I worked at Disney, I funded that trip. When I went to America by myself for 2 months, my parents didn't want me to go. They didn't give me a cent. So I think a really big, that's something that a lot of people assume about me. I also think a lot of people would assume that I'm very extroverted, that I'm very confident. And I think that's something that I am trying to embody, very much so. But I think as well, I'm someone who had a childhood full of a lot of bullying. Like, I'm talking to the point where I moved schools, to the point where would fake being sick so I didn't have to go to school. So there is a lot of limiting beliefs and self-sabotaging behaviors that I still act on because I'm still stuck in this cycle of I'm not good enough, people don't like me, or I'm not worthy of, or all of these things. And I think I like even running my events, like I get nervous and I really do try to show up as an evolved version of myself, and I'm getting there and I'm getting better. But I think people would assume that I'm always a very extroverted, loud, confident person with the right people, 100%. But I think as well, around new people, around big groups, I can be very reserved and very introverted. So I think they're probably the two biggest things that most people would assume. What lessons have you learnt in 2025 already? I learnt what hay fever is. So I posted a TikTok this morning actually about it. I've been in the doctors. This is something that like no one really knows about me yet, and I'm sure now you're all going to know it. So I have never had hay fever. I've never struggled with hay fever. I have been in the doctors every single Saturday morning for the last month trying to work out what was wrong with me. I had a brain MRI. My brain is fine. I've had multiple tests done. They are all fine. And we ruled it down to I have a severe sinus infection caused by hay fever. So I learned what hay fever was. Something else that 2025 has taught me, I want to say not everyone really is happy for you. Like, I'm talking people who you would bend backwards for, people who once upon a time were messaging you every single day. As soon as an ounce of jealousy comes into play in their mind, you're the first person to go. And it's really interesting to me when I reflect back on specific people who I thought were really good friends of mine, to how pretty much now we have zero contact because something on their end has happened and there's the lack of communication or the lack of respect. So I think people can fake a friendship if there's mutual gain or one-sided gain, because I would never go into a friendship for gain. That's too much effort. It's too much effort to fake being friends with someone if you're going to just want gain out of it. Like, don't have time for that. So I think it's really interesting to see that like people who I thought were just my friends no longer in my life, no longer in my world because of a jealousy thing. And I think that that's really upsetting. I thought my entire group was pretty solid. And I think that that's something that I've learned this year, that people will come and go and you won't be the right person for them, or they might not be able to hold you, your success, your plans, your projections, not projections, where you're projecting to in terms of like this community, where this community is going. And yeah, that was a big shock for me. That was definitely something that I struggled to come to terms with for a little bit, but I'm very much into terms with that now, and I think that's fine. Yeah, I think they would be my biggest lessons. What is one thing that I believe that will piss people off? Oh, I know what to say. And I know so many people are going to get so mad at this, and so many people potentially are going to disagree with me. Like, I will be surprised if there is one person who agrees with me on this, but I believe, purely based off someone who has lived in America on multiple, for over a year in total, I have lived in America, who has a lot of friends in America who have kids who have been struggling financially to buy food, to buy nappies, to do all of these things. I believe and hope that with Trump being in, their lives become better, because it is heartbreaking to see my friends who I love so much with children be unable to support their families financially, because when they had great jobs, when they had stability, when they had success, and for them to be able to pinpoint when their downfall started, and for them to be filled with so much hope that this new term will give them a break and will give them a chance of refinding their feet. I am very, very, very hopeful for them that this is the answer. And this has got nothing to do with him as a person, with him as a president, with him as whatever he's done in the past. That's got nothing to do with him. It has to do with my friends who I can visibly see struggling and wanting relief for them. So take that how you want. Like I have mentioned in my episode with Ruby, know very little about politics, know very little about what is actually going on. And I think for a long time I chose to not know because it's something, like I mentioned, my friends are very much impacted by this. My friends were going through a hurricane and couldn't afford to fix their home and had to flee their home. Like, that is heartbreaking stories when it's people I grew up with, people who I have known for over 5 years. Like, it's heartbreaking. And I think it's something I choose not to talk about because, one, it makes me really upset for them. And I understand that so many people have such strong opinions about him. I don't, and I choose not to because I want there to be hope for them. I want there to be hope for my friends who need a break. So, yeah, that's my belief or my hope or my wish that this new phase of America will be beneficial for them. And I'm really nervous to put this out on the internet, but that's something I know that a lot of people will disagree with me with purely based off their opinions for him. But if you're going to be mad at me, just know that it's purely because I want my friends to be okay and I want my friends to be able to have some relief. So, yeah, I'm really nervous. Some of these questions are really making me nervous. Okay, we're going to change it up because I need to go a little bit lighthearted because, one, I'm getting a bit sad thinking about my friends and their kids and how much I love their kids. And also I'm nervous that people are going to hate me after saying that. But who is the most famous person I've ever met? So the most famous person I've ever met, like in the wild, I want to say would be I think it would be Justin Timberlake. I think he would be the most famous person I've ever met. And that was at the Crown Towers pool. We were swimming together. And my godmother at the time, she's still my godmother. I have no relationship with her now. My godmother went up to him and introduced herself and introduced me. And that was probably the most famous person I've ever met. I've also met Pauline Hanson in the wild. My mum loved her. Oh, I also met Anthony Kalia in Bali while he was shopping for his niece, I think, and maybe trying a pair of shoes for his niece. I've also met Kylie Minogue backstage at her show. I was meant to meet Luke Combs backstage at his show 2 weeks ago. That didn't happen. That was really upsetting for me. Who else have I met? Don't really know. I think that's it. Yeah, I think Justin Timberlake would probably be the most famous person. My dad's met a lot of famous people, which is really, he's met a lot of famous people. That's strange. Love that. But love that for him. Yeah. If I could pick one trait from each of my sisters, what would it be? If one of my sisters asked me this question, I will be cut because that means they are listening to this. We're currently 35 minutes into this episode. They have been listening for 35 minutes to get this answer. So if this is one of my sisters, I will answer this question because I do have a trait from each of you that I would pick. But also, fuck you. So from my eldest sister, Zoe, I would pick her fashion sense. She works in the fashion industry. She dresses great all the time. She is the first person to tell me if I look ridiculous in what I'm wearing, or she's the first person that I will message if I need help with my outfits because I have zero sense of style. 95% of the outfits that everyone ever compliments me on, either Alex or Zoe has picked for me. So that is what I would pick from her. And then from Anastasia, my middle sister, I would pick, she's really smart and she's really organized. She studied, what did she study in school? criminal justice something. So like she's a smart gal. She's back studying now, doing her building designing degree. Like I would pick her brain and then also her like ability to plan. 90% of my wedding, like not even joking, like 90% of my wedding was planned by her. Like there's no other way to put it, but they're the two traits that I would pick. My husband asked me, "Your husband is so hot, can I have him?" Moving on. Someone asked me, "How do I slay as hard as you?" That's really cute. But I left that one intentionally for one of the last few questions to answer because I kind of want to touch on this whole thing of comparison and this whole thing of social media putting people in this light, social media putting people in this level of power, level of whatever it is to make it look like I'm slaying really hard or whatever. But something people need to realize is I am just like everyone else. I have days when I feel like I'm crumbling with self-doubt. I have days when I'm at home sitting on my couch absolutely bored out of my brains, when I don't want to train, when I don't want to film, when I think that this whole podcast is shit, when I think that my communities are shit, when I think that I'm not doing enough for my clients, when I don't feel motivated to do anything. Like I think we're so quick to look at other people's life online and we're so quick to tear ourselves down because our social media is not looking like someone else's social media. Our results according to social media in our reality don't look like that. I even had a conversation with one of my clients yesterday. I posted on Monday that I was down 2.8 kilos in a week from starting my prep. She then messaged me in her check-in that she was really upset with herself because she only had lost 100 grams. And it just made me realize very clearly that social media is such a highlight reel and social media is such an easy place for people to dictate their self-worth. And I think what I mean by this is my client is a mum. She's a full-time worker. She is a full-time mum. She has a small human to raise. I have no responsibility of another life. I have the flexibility to be able to train. My job right now is my prep and my business and this podcast. I have no other responsibilities outside of that. And I think her comparing herself when also our circumstances in terms of the level of sacrifice that we are willing to give. I'm training 5 days a week. I am doing 2 hours of cardio a week. I am doing 12,000 steps a day. I'm not eating out on the weekends. I'm not drinking alcohol. Whereas she values going out with her family. She values going out on the weekends and potentially having a glass of wine with her husband on the weekends. She is unable to spend so much time in the gym. She's unable to do cardio. And I think, excuse me, I burped again. I think really stepping away from comparing yourself to people online and recognizing that everyone is doing the best that they can and everyone is doing what they can to better themselves. And something really beneficial to me in this past week for my mental health, because when I tell you that I was in this self-hatred, like self-sabotaging cycle, that I walked into my friend's house and literally sobbed to her, that I felt ugly, that I felt worthless, that I felt like my business was failing, that I felt like I was a failure, that I felt like I was not likable, that I was boring, that I was going to all of these stupid things because of the people I was following on social media. If I have muted that many people that triggered me in any way, shape, or form, it doesn't need to mean that there is anything wrong with them. They are very much allowed to share whatever content they want. They are very much allowed to share their story, their wins, their highlights, their losses, their results, their day-to-day lives. But it got to the point where I was comparing myself based off the meal someone was eating, based off where someone was working, based off the bikini someone was wearing. It was every small detail I was hyper fixating on and was reflecting back onto myself to work out why I was less able, less valuable, less of a business owner, less of a wife, less of a person, and it was eating me alive. Like, you may have noticed over the last week, the shift in my content has just felt like more me because I'm consuming less shit from other people. And it's not even shit, like that may be the wrong word to use, but just less content from other people who I was comparing myself to. And I think, yes, it can be nice to feel inspired by some people. There are definitely people who I still am very much inspired by. There are definitely still accounts who I love following and who I will not probably mute because I am not triggered by them negatively. I am very much inspired and motivated by them. And I think that that is a positive. However, when it becomes to the point like my client where you're seeing something and you're feeling less worthy about yourself, you need to recognize that and you need to put an end to that, because I was very much caught up in, oh no, I'm not doing that. I'm not triggered by these people. Babe, you're fucking triggered by someone posting a photo of themselves going to the beach in their mirror, in their bikini, because you can't do that, because you don't feel comfortable to post that photo. What? I was getting triggered by people eating fucking oats because I wasn't eating oats. Like, that is dumb. It is so dumb. And to say it out loud, I'm like, what was I doing? And how long was I in that cycle for? And how long did that cycle prevent me from progressing and from holding myself back? So I've literally muted so many people. And like I said, if you listen to this, it is nothing to do with the people. Like, if you listen to this and you think that it is you and you have an issue or whatever, please message me, because I can guarantee you it is not to do with you at all. I was just filled with such this self-doubt spiral. And I think I appreciate you saying this question. I appreciate you asking how you can slay as hard as me and how you can build a brand. I'm assuming that's what it means, or run a podcast or whatever, but don't compare yourself. Don't get stuck in that cycle that I was stuck in, because it is truly debilitating, and it is the most, I don't want to say the most unhappiest I've ever been, but the most unhappiest I've been in a long time. And yes, there is always an initial trigger for it. And I very much know what that trigger was. And I'm not going to be saying that on this podcast, because that person doesn't deserve any recognition in any way, shape, or form for having an impact on my life, because they will be proved wrong. They will be made to look like the fool, and that is them, and they will know, and that is up to them to see that. And it has nothing to do with me giving them any recognition for any success that I have. But there is always a trigger as to when something starts to spiral. But like Matt mentioned in our most recent episode last week, being able to recognize that, and then being able to recognize that it is up to you to pull yourself out of that hole, I think is something that really I wasn't recognizing. And I'm very lucky that I had a friend be able to reflect it back to me and start the process for me. She literally grabbed my phone and started muting people, started unfollowing people that didn't need to be following. And I just want to, like, this is the last question that I have, I think, but I just want to kind of really touch base on, everyone is doing their own thing. And I think everyone is entitled to do their own thing. Everyone is entitled to post, say, act, feel, be whoever they want to be. And that is okay. But I think when it becomes to this point of lessening your worth because of social media, it can be such a toxic thing, such a toxic cycle to stay stuck in. And it is, I've been victim to it. I fall victim to it on multiple occasions. I'm recovering from that. It is very new. It has literally been a week. And yeah, I just want to say thank you if you are the person who sent me that question and you are inspired by me. However, if it is the opposite and you are feeling yourself with self-doubt because you think that you are not worthy enough to do the things that you want to do, please don't think that. Please go and act and mute me if that's what needs to happen. And yeah, that's all I want to say. So I've been yapping away now for 45 minutes. I did want to do a little bit of a giveaway in this podcast episode. I have never done a giveaway before, one with the community on this podcast. So I am going to give away a double pass to our live event on March 15th if you've made it this far into the episode. All you have to do to enter is rate this podcast 5 stars, share this episode to your story, and let's put on the caption something along the lines of my MRI and hay fever. How good's hay fever? Let's put that. If you've listened this far, share this episode tile onto your story. Tag me, the women's health community. Tag my private account, Georgia Kapp _ how good is hay fever? However you want to word that, if you want to laugh at me, if you want to mock me, whatever. And I'll be giving away a double pass for you and your best friend to attend our live event on March 15th. In saying that, if you do want to attend, please grab your ticket because I'm in the process of organizing all your goodie bags and setting up the space, and it is just going to be an epic, epic, epic event. But that is all from me today. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to me yap away at answering all your questions. If you did send in a question, thank you so much. And that is it from me, but we'll see you next week. Bye.